All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you for those of you that went away. We welcome you back to the auditorium. We had a great time here without you guys, and I'm sure that you guys also enjoyed your time over there. We are left with the last breakaway section to have before two more presentations, and then our day here will be through. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go over two questions, and then those that would go to the far end, we just need about 50 people to go. Just 50 of you. That's all that we need. So I'm going to start with question number 1. The use of project management as a tool to optimize results from social change and advocacy projects in Ghana. And then the second question is supporting organizational change through effective project management. Those of you that are for the use of project management as a tool to optimize results from social change and advocacy projects in Ghana, please raise your hands. We just need 50. You're the ones that would stay here. Please raise your hands. All right, let me go over this again. Some of you did not get me. My first question are the people that would stay here. The second question, they would have to go for their breakaway section where the others had theirs just a moment ago. So I'm going to go over the questions again for you to make a choice. The use of project management as a tool to optimize results from social change and advocacy projects in Ghana. That is 1. 2, supporting organizational change through effective project management. Let me start with question number 2 so that you guys can go out. How many of you are for supporting organizational change through effective project management? Please, we need 50 of you to go outside. Just 50 of you. And that presentation is going to be done by Lillian Lawe. So she's going to take over from there. And then right over here, Mr. Teiko Sabah will be taking us through the use of project management. Teiko Sabah. Miss. Oh, I see. Oh, Teiko Sabah. Please, forgive me. Teiko is a male name. Come again. What's it there? Yo, Mate. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, Teiko Sabah happens to be a she, and she will be taking us through the use of project management as a tool to optimize results from social change and advocacy projects in Ghana. So let me find out, do we have our 50 people outside? Okay, if they have gone outside, with a round of applause, please let's welcome Teiko Sabah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's the male in hair that will be dominating this presentation. So that is why I mentioned he. And then finally, I got the fact that Teiko Sabah. That's fine. Good to know.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I start with a suit. I'm suing PMI Ghana for not informing the facilitator that Teiko is also a female name and misrepresenting the entire female gender. I am truly incensed, and I take this very, very personally. And so I am suing PMI Ghana, represented by Madame Jumoke. But for her to placate me, I will take one pin book. If she gives me just one, I won't take her to court. Only one. It's placation. It's neither lobbying or bribe. Okay, so I'm waiting for my presentation to come up on screen. So maybe while I'm waiting, just a little bit on my lineage. that yes, there's a particular tribe in Ghana where Teikos are male, but I am from Pong on Sea. That's the name of my town. And for us, my particular clan and my father's family, Teiko is a female name, and it's actually a derivative of Dede. So I'm the first girl. And it doesn't come with Na, so please don't call me Na. I'm still waiting for my presentation to come up on screen. But while I'm waiting, let's do a little bit of a survey. How many of us here work in the built environment, roads, buildings, hospitals? How many of us are project managers there? Like things that you can see. Okay, I don't know how to call it, the visible environment. Things that you can see, roads, buildings, hospitals, electronics, brick and mortar, yes. Please, can you raise your hand? Yes, and if you used to, yes, can you raise your hand? Okay. And how many of us work in the invisible, the intangible space, intellectual property, legal, and all those things? Okay, I see a few hands, yes. How many of us work in the NGO space, the not-for-profit space? Okay, I see a few hands, but less hands. Okay. Doctor is in all the areas, and I'm happy that he's here for this presentation. So, the presentation I'm coming to make, and I'm still waiting for it to come on screen, is based on a social advocacy project that I have been involved in for a while. And when I became a project manager, I realized that most of the work that PMI did was in the built space. That was when you had serious waterfall. So when I did my PMI exam, none of the things made sense to me. And the 20 years of experience that I had done working in communities across the country, projects managing behavioral change projects, advocacy projects, lobbying projects, changing policies and laws in different things. And none of them were in the book. The only place that made sense to me was risk management. But apart from risk management, EVM and all those things, we do log frames, and you do a Gantt chart. That might be the end. And so it was difficult for me to understand until I got into Agile. And so I'm happy that PMI is now more Agile, because that is where some of us find our feet. There's a whole industry of people doing project management that is missing from the spaces in which project management has been for the past few years. And I'm happy that they are getting space. We are now getting space. And my advocacy is that, so this is all not part of my presentation. Oh, it's come up, okay. So my advocacy, please, can you show me how to use this? Okay, good, thank you. My advocacy is that we can do more of this. So this presentation is how I adapted the Agile Manifesto to suit a project that we were working in around social change in Ghana and how it worked. And for those of us, I haven't passed my Agile exam, okay? This year, it will be one of my goals. So if you also want to do your discipline Agile, join me. Let's set up a WhatsApp group and do it. So in my learning towards my Agile exam, the things that made sense to me more than it had ever done when I was doing my PMP. Because at that time, in 2016, 2017, PMP was very much waterfall. And it did not have so much of the Agile focus as it did now. And so as I was learning towards my Agile exam, I was like, okay, this makes sense to me. How do I adapt the project that I'm working on to be more Agile? Because once again, Agile is focused originally on software and on computer design and all those things that go to software. But I'm doing social advocacy. How do I adapt it? So this is my outline. I would talk about the original program, and then the concept, methodology, implementation, strategies, lessons learned, and then how I have adopted the Agile Manifesto into social development projects. And I will continue to champion this so that in the future, PMI would look into social development as projects and be able to support us in how we work. So this is the program. And a few people here have been part of the program for purposes of data management. I might mention the name of the program, but a few of you know about the program. So this was an advocacy and social justice program that was implemented in an uncertain environment. The focus was on transparency and anti-corruption at national level. And we needed to ensure citizens were informed, especially vulnerable and hard-to-reach citizens. And our overall goal was a well-informed civil society able to contribute to transformational change. Now, this is the situation. You have a project. You know what you want to achieve. You have the funds to achieve it. But the environment in which you are working is so uncertain that you can't chart a straight path. And the question was that, how do you make that work? How do you achieve your objectives at the end of a 5-year project with a budget of about 25 million pounds when you don't know anything with the exception that this is what we want to achieve, this is our goal, a well-informed civil society, able to contribute to transformational change around the key challenges of poverty, inequality, and inclusion. That is all we're giving. So basically we're giving a blank card. At the end of the 5 years, this is what you have to achieve. In Ghana here, we don't know how we are going to do it. The environment at that time was very uncertain. We were going to have elections. We didn't know who was going to win. And if we won, what was going to happen? How do we work with civil society to be able to get the change that we want? For citizens to be more knowledgeable about the policies and the practices of their state so that they can inform and be informed to take action. Now, we used a methodology that we finally came to call the 3 C's and L. The 3 C's standing for convening, catalyzing, coordinating, and learning. Convening, catalyzing, coordinating, and learning. And within this project, we supported civil society using these 3 methodologies and the L. And now, as we go out, speak about how that was done as a means to chart a path in an uncertain environment, not knowing very clearly who your stakeholders are. In the past, if it was a waterfall, it would have been called the one that, progressive elaboration, isn't it? But now in Agile, you are open and you are supposed to do sprints. But how do you learn from this process? And how do we continue to innovate? And how do you support your team to be able to do this in a process that is empowering for all of us? Now, the 3 C's and L is a social intervention and participatory strategy that is designed to support active citizenship through the creation, development, and use of spaces. And when we say spaces, we mean places for discussions, places where people can get information at all levels, at the districts level, at the national level, at the community level. How do citizens interact with their state? Between citizens as rights holders and the state as duty bearers, working jointly to ensure transformational change. So there was a the methodology, the conceptual framework we're using was what we call the rights-based approach. In the rights-based approach, there are 2 sets of stakeholders, citizens on one side and the state on the other side. And the hypothesis is that citizens are supposed to have power. And they are supposed to demand from the state. This is the social accountability network. And the state that has the authority and has the resources is supposed to provide spaces that exist, or even developing new spaces using online. We had a partner called Odikro, and in fact today they just put something out. They use internet, they use social media to be able to get information out. And if you remember, there was a time, what they did was something called the Absenteeism Report in Parliament. This Absenteeism Report showed the numbers of MPs who had been absent in Parliament for more than the recommended number of days. And when they wrote that report and they put it out, it was during election time. Some MPs said they lost elections because their constituents realized that they were actually not coming to parliament. They are using their unravel somewhere else. And when we did this, we actually convened a conversation with parliament to have a discussion about how, when they do that, it affects citizens, and also how parliament can stop that. Catalyze. Now, active citizenship, we are all citizens, but to what extent do we use our citizenship? How active are we as citizens? And let me ask you a question. In the last election, how many of us voted? The presidential and the parliamentary election. How many of us voted? Great. In the last local assembly election, the one that they elected assembly persons and unit committee members, how many of us voted? And the number is lower. But that is where you have to vote, because those are the ones that affect you personally. And you show your active citizenship. Let me ask, how many of us have ever gone for a town hall meeting in the district assembly within which we live? How many of us have ever gone to the district assembly when they had a town hall meeting to go and sit there? You have gone. And no crowd dream kakra and sauma on saso. So they have meetings, they have quarterly meetings, they have annual meetings, they have budget meetings, they have report meetings. Some of us don't even know where our district assemblies are. The only reason why we go there is to say that our rubbish has not been collected. And so, active citizenship is about what the rights that you have as a citizen and how you use it. And this project sought to make that much more known. Because people are living, you say, oh, the road is fault. What are you going to do? Oh, maybe they are buying that major man. But if you're an active citizen, you will ask questions in the right spaces for you to get answers, just because you're a citizen. So our catalyzing was to say that you are active, you are a citizen, and you should use your voice. You should use yourself to change the community. Collective action, both nationally and locally, towards systemic democratic change. And so catalyzing active citizenship is important at all levels. Take, for example, we had a project in northern Ghana, in the Tumu area. Around that time, Planting for Food and Jobs was giving free fertilizer. And when they gave the fertilizer, I don't want to mention him, but the fertilizer was being smuggled across the borders. And so the farmers were not getting the fertilizers. They went to the district assembly, used their citizenship, their active citizenship, to speak about it. The district assembly did not mind them. So what they did was that they wrote a petition that brought the minister of Agri to Tumu to come and stop that. And by doing that, the farmers were able to get the fertilizers that they needed. And so we are catalyzing collective action, because when they did it at their level, it did not get any input. But because this fund, and we were giving grants, it was a grant-making organization, gave some grants that was able to support the local civil society in that space, to be able to bring up their issue to the national level. It caught the attention of the Minister of Agri, and then he went to make a change at that level. So that's about the second C. The third C is coordinating and supporting strategic collaboration within and between civil society, governments, the private sector, and other stakeholders. And in this space, we say that we are all in it together. Everything that happens in Ghana, I say, oh, where is civil society? Civil society should come and talk about it. Civil society should come and talk about it. But we are all civil society. So how do we coordinate and support strategic collaboration? The collaboration has to be strategic. And of course, learning cuts across everything that we do. So you see that learning is also part of the 3 C's and L. And it's a circle, it goes round. You will notice that there's no one chart between the C's, because all of them work in the spaces that are needed. Okay, my slides are not moved. So what I have here is how the 3Cs work. And you will see that in the squares, it starts with issue identification. How do you identify an issue that is important to citizens? And it's not all issues. There has to be something that is in line with corruption, transparency, and citizens' action. In many instances, we start with what we call a magic moment. Something comes up, which is just one little thing, but you can use it to get to a systematic challenge that has to be discussed. So take, for example, free SHS. For those of us who remember, when the double track system came, the double track system was announced, and within 2 weeks, our children were going to school and the double track system was starting. And we asked ourselves, what does this mean for resourcing our educational system? And so we use that as an opportunity to convene a conversation on education, to look at what do the teachers say about free SHS, the double track system. What do the parents say about it? What are the students saying about it? One of the things that came up during that conversation just before free SHS started was the fact that at that time, the Ministry of Education had not thought through the fact that if there's a double track, some of the teachers will have to stay on for both tracks. The maths teacher will still teach maths in the science track, and the maths teacher will still teach maths in the arts track. And it was because of some of these conversations that the Ministry of Ghana Education Service able to get 2 sets of teachers to do the teaching for the double tracks. Some of these things worked and some did not. So issue identification. And then we do what we call the scoping or a PE. Now, political economy analysis is a tool that we use a lot because it talks about understanding the politics within which a particular policy exists and why that policy has come up at that particular moment in time. Because sometimes it's not just the hard letters on the paper, but understanding the invisible power behind why such a policy is out and how the implementation. So if you understand the politics and the political economy of these things, it makes it easier for you within an uncertain environment to see what you can do, what particular tool you can use. Does it mean that you should go to GES directly? Should you engage the Parliament's Education Committee? Should you go to the schools? What should you do to be able to get the process going? So that was one of the key things that the 3CCNL did, which was to understand the very uncertain situations in which we are working in Ghana and all the policies that were coming up. And then in a participatory manner, develop an advocacy approach in relation to what you find on the field, so that you are going straight into and addressing the issue that you have on the field. And when you do that, you are able to get things going. Then we plan, then we implement initial dialogue sessions, follow up with action plans, entry points. You find then entry points that you can use more, and then you learn the lessons to inform the next phase. You will see that there are various components of this that look like a sprint, okay? And it goes in and out. Sometimes you are convening, sometimes you are catalyzing, sometimes you are coordinating, you are using the tools that you have, and you are learning as you go along. Now, what issues did we focus on within the ecosystem in which we found ourselves? As I've already spoken about magic moments. So something happens. So for example, in northern Ghana, an old lady is beaten to death because they say she is a witch. It's just a one-off event. But for civil society, for those of us who are working in the space, we know that it's a systematic issue about the most vulnerable women in our societies and how they are seen. And so because it's just a one-off, but we use that as a magic moment, something that the country is talking about, and used to have a conversation about women's rights and what we do to our women. And by doing that, we are able to push for things like the Affirmative Action Bill or any other bills that will help to alleviate the plight of these women. Locally salient issues, focusing on things that are relevant to citizens in the communities in which they work. So for example, something might be relevant to women in Brong-Ahafo region, which is very important we need to work on, and might not be relevant to people in Equiapem or in Cape Coast. And so that is also something that we focus on, strategic policy influencing at the very highest level. What are some of the strategies, the policies that we believe is important for Ghana to be able to ensure that citizens and duty bearers, governments are talking together? So for example, tax policy. How do the district assemblies come up with their tax, set their tax rate? These are things that we had conversations around. The issues around the referendum, very strategic level, constitutional review. These are things that were important that we needed to target, and nobody else was talking about it at that time. Even now, constitutional review, nobody is talking about it. But we believe that that is an important tool to change the winner takes all that we have in our system, and therefore this is some of the things that we worked on. Now, some of the lessons that we learned was that when we use what we call magic moments, it helps the stakeholders to be able to talk about things that they are interested about, passionate about, but have not had the opportunity to speak about, because there are so many things happening in society. And so it was important for us to use entry-level, magic moments as entry-level. And also to connect what is happening. The second lesson was connecting the local to the national. There are things happening at the local level that we do not know about at the national level. How do we make that connection? How do we catalyze? How do we blow up the issues so that we can get a lasting solution to it at all levels? There could be some policies that are not being implemented that if we did catalyze, then we'll be able to see more about them. Number 3, purposeful actions are required to move beyond convenings. It's not enough to just talk, but after you talk, you have to act. And so in the case of the Galamsey, the Stop Galamsey movement, after they had gone around the country, had town hall meetings, done T-shirts. Engineer, some of your T-shirts still are in the communities. I go there and I see the pink T-shirts. Gone to CSIR, water research. What do we do? They went to the Ministry of Natural Resources, went to Parliament, started a campaign in all the newspapers to be able to get change going. So it's not just enough to talk, but it's also important to take action. Depth rather than breadth. Sometimes at a point, you have to decide what you work on and what you want. Otherwise, as for Ghana, the things that we work on are plenty. Everybody has a pet issue that they want to solve. From electricity to water to climate change to youth issues to churches to everything. And so we need to pick a few things and focus on it. And then collaboration. It's not enough just to do it. The fact that we had a big pot of money did not mean that just that organization could do the work. And so we worked with other civil society organizations, private sector organizations, around issues of anti-corruption, around issues of transparency, to get change. Now, my final 2 slides is how then did we adapt this project to the Agile Manifesto, and how does that make sense? Okay. Now, Agile has 4 core values, 12 principles, statements of interdependence, and all the other tools that used to do the sprints and the learnings and all those things. For the purpose of this, I'll just focus on the first 2, how we adapted the core values and the 12 principles. We looked at it and said, how does this make sense in a social project, implementing a social justice project? So these are just the declarations, the 4 components, and what we mean by that. Now, who remembers any of the Agile values? The core values? Okay. So there's a statement. The manifesto has a statement. It says, we are uncovering better ways of sustaining socio-economic changes. Not in the sustaining, we are uncovering better ways of doing software. That's what's in the actual manifesto statement. Through this work, we have come to value. Now, the 4 core values that Agile has. Number 1 is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Adapting it to social change, we are saying that convening conversations over processes and tools. So we believe that is important than just going in and saying that this is what you want to do and therefore we are doing it for you, but having a conversation to understand what the actual needs are. The second one is working software over comprehensive documentation. That is the Agile Manifesto words. We are saying coordinating networks and movements over comprehensive documentation. So comprehensive documentation is important, but coordinating networks and movements, we believe, is the core of what we are doing. The third one is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. For social advocacy, we are saying catalyzing collaboration over contract negotiation. So it's not just I'll do this, you do this, but how do we work together in a spirit of trust to move our place forward? And the fourth one, which we also agree on, is responding to change over following a plan. And that is the whole work that civil society does, that we are quite opportunistic. There's something that is happening, we already have a plan, but we respond to it and we are able to then make it work. And what we are saying is that while there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. Okay. So this is how we have adopted the Agile Manifesto with the core values. Now the final one is the Agile Principles. There are 12 principles. And I would read the actual principle and then the adapted. Some of them we agree with them, and so we did not change them. Satisfy the customer. We are saying work with and through your identified stakeholders. Number 2, build projects and around motivated individuals. We are saying understand the context and work with interested groups and networks who have a stake in the results. Number 3, face-to-face conversations. We agree face-to-face conversations are important, but we believe that we should also think and work politically. Understand the politics behind what you are doing, and you are more willing to get a result out of it. Number 4, attention to technical excellence and design. This we agree with. With all the work that we do, you need to know your work. You need to know what you are doing. You need to have the basis. Otherwise, we are just playing. Number 5, working software primarily as a measure of progress. And we are saying, yes, the software has to work, but we need to trust the process, fail fast, and learn on the job. Number 6, we welcome changing requirements. That is definitely agile, and we agree with it, including changing stakeholders, changing circumstances. Sometimes the stakeholders that you work with on a particular issue might not be the same stakeholders on the other issue. The final 6, number 7, simplicity, we agree. Be clear about your purpose, but flexible with the strategy. Number 8, maintain a constant pace. We agree. We are also saying that seize opportunistic moments to make change happen. So sometimes there are things that you see as civil society, a lot of people have come around and we are working around it. And at other times, we are also doing other things. Number 9, reflect to become more effective. And we are saying, yes, of course, learn and always improve on what you are doing. Number 10, business people and developers, sorry for that mistake, must work together. We are saying, yes, and identify other collaborators and work with them. Number 11, self-organizing teams. Definitely important. But make sure that your teams are inclusive. So GESI means gender equality, social inclusion. Ensure that your teams can self-organize, they can work, but also make it inclusive. And the final one, deliver working software frequently. If you prioritize magic moments, pick up the issues that you need, you'll be able to go on. Now, at the end of the 5 years, this is the evaluation that we had, and I'll just like to read it. The use of the 3CNL approach as a method of work has been key to achieving the outcomes harvested as they were carefully and deliberately deployed. In practice, the precise hierarchy and mix of application depended on the moment, the context, and the specific purpose it was intended to serve. The 3CNL approach was relevant in maintaining program focus while responding to the differential needs and capacities of grantees. And this is Agile. This is actually what Agile sought to. This is the definition of Agile within the social advocacy space. And this is what I'm proposing to project management. Let us be more agile. Let us look within some of the sectors that have been traditionally cut out, especially the civil society advocacy sector, because we are also project managers. And on that note, I thank you for your time.
Better than that for her. Would want to pick some questions from the audience. Can we have a microphone there?
Thank you very much. Oh, I'm so sorry. So it strikes me as the NGO sector and what you do is pretty much agile in any case, because I think you are reacting to what's going on in your environment and you are picking up issues of concern in the society. How do you balance the strategy against agility? Whilst you may have a period set, a vision, your strategy, and then you have the environmental changes happening, disrupting your strategy, and you have to gyrate perhaps to pick up new issues, taking away focus from your core vision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that it's not all NGOs that do Agile. There are other NGOs that actually do quite straight projects, like, let's say, those who would work like the PPAGs and things where they deliver a service. So the service, the charity projects, the NGOs, they do more. There is the policy advocacy NGOs that do this. Now, we recognize that there's a space between our baseline and what we want to do. And the strategy that we use is different. For us, yes, we come up with a strategy, but what we do is a theory of change. Mostly what NGOs would do would be something called the theory of change, which is an if-then analysis, which also then opens us up for if things change. So a theory of change would have like 3 or 4 basic tenants, and then you'd be asking yourself, if this happens, then this is what you do. If this happens, then this is what you do. So you do the if-then analysis from your baseline to your end, and you're able to chart a path. One of them would get there depending on what you do and how you put in the effort and who works with you on it, and how the environment changes to ensure that you are either working in line or not, and some of the unintended changes that might be success stories or not. So mostly what we do is the theory of change, which comes out with pathways of how you can work, which is also agile, seriously agile. Yeah.
Thank you. 2 more questions.
Yeah, so my question regards going deeper rather than wider, because you touched on it. And I realized that in the NGO space, often people want to go wider quickly because it looks to the outside world that that's what success is. Whereas within, it may not be deep enough to be of high quality. So what are some of the conversations that you've had around that, and how have you convinced stakeholders that going deeper is often better than just spreading yourself thin? Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are some NGOs, and I'm not speaking for all NGOs, I'm just focusing on this project, who do everything from child rights to agriculture to health to water to everything like that, and they spread themselves thin. You would notice how many of those NGOs continue to exist beyond 5 years. It's better to sharpen your saw and go deeper, and that is what most people would do, most organizations would do, that they'll focus on 1 or 2 core in themselves, and it's working well. Or other organizations, if you take IDEC works with governance, the same thing, and it goes deeper so that you are able to entrench yourself and you know that you can be able to make change over a period of years. Otherwise, you lose out. Sadly, that is this. And actually, it's also for all aspects of your life, you know, that sometimes when you spread yourself too thin, you really burn out. So it's not just in the civil society space, but we recognize that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Of course, social behavior change is difficult and slow. And in this age of digital technology, and you said you have about 20 years of experience, which is quite interesting. And I would love to know whether you came across any digital tool, information and communication technology for development used on the project beneficiary side that has made some impact. I don't know if the question is clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can't really point to one specific tool with a name that did that, but in the work that we did, we used social media a lot. We used ICT to get to some of the stakeholders that we need about, because we're working with vulnerable people. Some of those people do not have the technologies that are required. Of course, the usual project management tools for doing the research basis were used, but I don't think there was a particular ICT tool that we use specifically. Yeah.
Thank you very, very much. Let's give it to her. And we have a presentation for you.